Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob, and in an incredibly exciting day, Games Workshop has started its faction focuses for all of the different armies in Age of Sigmar 4, and I'm going to be here to review every single one of them. And then when the game releases, we'll review every single one of those armies. And then after that, we'll review every single spearhead. And at that point, we shall rest, which is cool. And there are some incredibly exciting insights into how Stormcast Eternals are going to play in Age of Sigmar 4. So let's dive straight in. I want to say first off, it's pretty nice that in these articles, they are obviously adding a bit of the lore here. They're describing what Stormcast Eternals are. So if you are a new person, it's the first time you've ever watched it, you are going to be pretty excited to know who Stormcast are and see, the deep lore of what they are and who they are. So it's this lovely little overview about the different chambers, not the Sacrosanct Chamber. We don't mention those. And all the different chambers and how they work. Obviously, teasing you a little bit as you lead into being able to play Stormcast Eternals in 4th edition. Then they go and talk about battle traits. Now, if you have never engaged in Age of Sigmar at all, it's worth me pointing out the battle traits are like your army special rules that are very specific to just your army. You build a whole Stormcast Eternals army, and these battle traits are going to apply to you. Every army has their own unique battle traits. This Games Workshop's way of trying to add the flavor and the story, the backdrop, because ultimately this isn't a game of tokens and just numbers. And instead, what it is an incredibly flavorful universe with different realms, incredible backstory, multiple Black Library books, and a narrative which, while only existing for 10 years, has been developed and added onto not only in the core rule books, but also multiple battle tomes. And so the battle traits are their way of kind of really identifying how the army works. And these battle traits are pretty cool. You get the ability to put the Stormcast Eternals into what we call reserve. So as you're doing deployment and you deploy regiments, your army is constructed into regiments. When you put them into regiments, you're able to put different models off the board into reserve as you're deploying your units on the board. Each regiment is what we call a one drop. So if you have 4 regiments, you drop all of one regiment, all of another regiment, as an example, one at a time, and you would crisscross with your opponent, or so it go alternating. So then you put units in reserve, and then the Celestial Realm lets you put units in reserve. We covered this already, but that's pretty easy. And then the Scions of the Storm ability, which you do in your movement phase, allows you to take them from reserve and deep strike them anywhere on the board 9 inches away from your opponent. It's what's called deep striking. That's the term that we all use for it. There might be different ways that they cover this over the course of different armies. We've already seen it for Skaven as well. But deep striking is what we call it. It means deploy off the board 9 inches away from the enemy. Okay. So then we have the once per battle ability, Heaven Sent, which you do in your movement phase. And the little one symbol you see at the top means that this costs a command point. You get a limited amount of command points over the course of a battle round. You get 4. If you are the underdog, you get 5. And if your opponent brings auxiliaries, you get an additional 1. So that's quite nice. Also, when you're writing army lists, don't build auxiliaries. Anyway, you would use that resource, and you can do that in your movement phase. And what you do is you pick a Stormcast Eternals infantry or cavalry unit that's got 2 or more models, and you're able to set up a replacement unit with half of the number of models in more than 9 inches away from your opponent. Now, an important point to note is because this is going to scale really well. So 5 Liberators and being able to return 3 is not going to be the same return for your command point as, let's say, a really good, solid, strong cavalry unit like, I don't know, a unit of Dracoths, or if they end up being cavalry Storm Drake Guard. Right now, we haven't seen which units are, but probably the most expensive unit you can take and then use that on them because you can only do it once per battle. So it's all about what we call economies of scale. And again, if you're new to Wargame in general, Age of Sigmar, it's something to think about. And then you have a once per turn for your army ability that you can do in your hero phase. So this is once per turn only in your hero phase. You can do their finest hour, where you pick a friendly Stormcast Eternals unit that's not used this ability. You can add one to the wound rolls for that unit's combat attacks and to save rolls for that unit. And it only lasts into your turn for the rest of the turn. So for one turn, you can have +1 to wound rolls and +1 to save rolls. So if there is a unit you're planning on sending into the big bad, let's say you've got Krondis and he's off to go fight Archaon, you can give him +1 to wound, you give him +1 save, so he's geared up for that battle as much as he can, which is nice. Doesn't cost any command points, it's just a free ability, so don't forget to use it. Then they go on to talk about battle formations, and this is actually pretty good if you're thinking about how to build, like if you're an already existing Age of Sigmar player, because we found out some more information, specifically that each one of the battle packs or the kind of army special rules that are going to release during launch is going to have 4 battle formations, which are what we would call sub-factions. So you have army rules, and then you choose a sub-faction or a battle formation, and then there are going to be 4 of those. And then you also choose a heroic trait. Is it a heroic trait? Something like that. A heroic trait, and also you choose a special item. And there's going to be 3 heroic traits, and there's going to be 3 special items that you can choose for each one of your armies, which is cool. For Stormcast, we got Thunderhead Host, Lightning Echelon, and Sentinels of the Bleak Citadel. That does mean there's one more we haven't heard yet, but I'm almost certain it's going to be dragon-themed. So what do you get as a special rule if you choose one of these sub-factions? Well, if you choose Sentinels of the Bleak Citadels, then what you can do is you can pick a friendly Ruination Chamber unit. The way you can work out if it's a Ruination Chamber unit is at the bottom of a War Scroll, it will say they're a Ruination Chamber. And then you can give that unit a 5-up ward for the rest of the turn. You only do that once per turn and in any hero phase. So that means in your turn, the unit that you've already given +1 to wound and +1 to save to, if it's a Ruination Chamber unit, you can also choose it to have a 5-up ward save. So it's very prepared for this massive battle. In your opponent's turn, because you can do it in once per turn for your army, and a turn is each player's turn, then and it says any hero phase, not your hero phase, you can choose one of your units to be like defensive. You can be like, oh, that unit's going to have a 5-up ward as long as it's a Ruination unit, which is cool. Next up, we find out about Arcana and Incantations, and we have seen this already, but this is something else to add, again, if you're new or if you're just starting in Age of Sigmar. The important parts to note about Age of Sigmar is when you write your army list, you'll choose a spell law from the available spell laws, and you get that for free, and all wizards in your army will be able to cast spells from that spell law. You won't be able to repeat cast those spells unless they have the unlimited keyword, and even then a single wizard isn't able to constantly cast the same spell. Instead, what they're able to do is, if it's an unlimited one, if you've got 3 wizards, each one of those wizards can attempt to cast it. If it doesn't have the unlimited keyword, you can't attempt to cast it more than once at all. Super simple, nice and easy. Prayers are quite interesting in the way they work. And what you do is you try to summon, you try to enchant a prayer, summon a prayer, benefactor prayer. You roll a dice. As long as it's not a 1, that creates a total. And then that total you can keep adding to each turn, each one of your turns. In fact, there's a really fun command ability if you're playing main match play Age of Sigmar, which lets you cast or chant a prayer in your opponent's turn, meaning that you can roll a low straight up in their turn as well, meaning you can get a really high number. You stack those numbers up as long as you don't roll a 1. If you roll a 1, you take D3 away from that number, and when you get a total of that number, you can use it to do a prayer. That's how prayers work. Okay, and what prayer do we get for Stormcast? Well, you get Blessed Weapons, which requires a 6, and there's an empowered version on a 12. You pick a friendly Stormcast Eternals unit, and they are going to get +1 to their attack characteristics as long as they're wholly within 12 inches. However, if you save up those points, it can be every Stormcast Eternals unit wholly within 12 inches. You do it in your hero phase, so it's like a buff, and those units can then move away. So it's not what we call an aura ability, where it would affect every unit in range, and instead, it's an ability that you put onto a unit and then they run off and then they utilize that ability. And then it lasts until the end of the start of your next turn. So it's actually on for a long time. So if you can get that number really high early, it's super good. It's super good. So those are all the abilities that we know so far. And then we get some insights in some units. Now, they have already showed some other units already. And I've done another video looking at all of the units. And again, you can find it on the same channel. Looking at all the units that we saw from the launch box, like the Reclusians and the Lord Terminos. So go check that video out. Okay, first up, we got Krondis, who's the son of Dracothian. It's pretty cool. Big old dragon on a massive base. He's got 20 health and a 3-up armor, saves and move 12 inches, which is pretty nice, and has a 12-inch shooting attack. It's only 1 attack, but it hits on a 2, wounds on a 3, and his Ren 2, and his D3 plus 3 damage, and quite nicely, because he's a large monster and is probably going to get stuck in combat quite a lot, is able to shoot that in combat, and that is really good in my personal opinion. Even though it's only 1 shot, so it's not going to happen all the time, when that does work, an average of 4 damage it means he's going to be very effective into certain units. Then he has 2 other melee profiles because he's predominantly kind of a wizard monster, which is quite interesting. A wizard melee monster, so should cost quite a lot of points. He's got the Drake Lord's Talons, which are 6 attacks, 3s and 2s, Rend 2, damage 2. So that's quite a lot of attacks. Apex more 4 attacks, damage 4, and it was Rend 3 against infantry. Very nice. Very nice. There's a lot of damage coming out of these. Now, if you see the little skull next to his Apex More, they have a passive, and most monsters have passives now. And what that relates to is their battle damage, and it normally reduces the effectiveness of something on their profile. For Krondis, it means that their Apex More attack goes from 4 down to 2. But still, quite a lot of damage could come out of Krondis, especially over 2 turns. Big monster, very survivable, got a 3-up save. Doesn't have a ward save, though, so I think some people are disappointed by that. We'll end up seeing if that is a problem in the future. Then he has a couple of special abilities and also a unique spell. His first one is the Regalia Fulmataris, which is +2 to cast for the spells for this unit. And seeing as they're a level 2 wizard, that's pretty nice because they're going to be able to have +2 to cast. We've seen lots of pluses to cast, and we've also seen in the battle plans for Age of Sigmar 4 that there's always going to be a place of power, which means you can potentially ask for the ability to add +1 to cast. Although now I'm thinking about it, that might just be infantry. But if it's not, then potentially +3 to cast, which is pretty good. That means you can cast all the spells that you want. And he's also got a once per turn in the army ability, the Soul Shaking Roar. This is done in the combat phase because it's red. That's how we know it's done in the combat phase. And what this does is you choose a unit that's in combat with, on a 3+, the target cannot use commands for the rest of the turn. So not just for the combat phase, but also for the rest of that whole turn. And that can be done in any combat phase. So once this guy is in combat, he's going to be picking a target and not let them do commands. While that doesn't sound very sexy as an ability, it's quite good because commands are quite important to use. He has his own unique spell, the Atavistic Tempest, which is cast on an 8. Because he's naturally +2 to cast, means he's going to cast it on a 6. It also means it's going to be much harder for your opponent to beat that casting value, because when you're trying to dispel a spell, or unbind a spell, specifically, then you need to beat the casting value. So if I roll a 10, you have to roll an 11. So effectively, you always have to roll 3 higher than Krondis, because he adds +2. So that's pretty nice. So his spell, which is cast on an 8, so effectively a 6 for him, is you choose an enemy target within 18 inches, and then you pick one of the 3 following effects. Blinding Gales subtracts 1 from hit rolls, Meteoric Hail subtracts 1 from Rend characteristic, and Flash Freezing Blizzard subtracts 1 from save rolls for the target. All of those are great. Obviously, -1 save is particularly good because his combat profiles are already Rend 2. So that means they're going to go up to Rend 3 effectively. And if it's infantry, it's Rend 4. And we're about to look at Annihilators with their 2-up save, but you could just mince through Annihilators with this ability, which is quite nice. -1 from the Rend characteristic is also really good because Stormcast have a higher armor save. So you can make it so that make your units that much more survivable, which is pretty good. So I think Krondis is pretty cool. Let me know what you think about him in the comments. He's also a War Master. We, as of yet, don't know what War Master does, but I'm pretty certain what that will do is that will unlock the ability for his regiment to have more units. The way you build a unit in Age of Sigmar 4, a regiment in Age of Sigmar 4, is you have a hero, and that unlocks the ability to have 3 different units in that regiment. Some certain heroes have the ability to unlock multiple different types of units in their regiment. Importantly, also, your general's regiment has the ability to have 4 units. So there you go. That's how that works. Next up, we're going to look at Yndrasta, and a lot of people are really excited about Yndrasta. She's got 8 health with a 3-up armor save, moves 12 inches, so again, she's really fast. She's got a weapon called Thengavar, which is a ranged weapon with only 1 shot, and it's 3s and 2s, Rend 2, damage 4, and it's anti-monster, Rend 1. And then in combat, Thengavar also has 2 attacks that are 2s and 2s, so very, very reliable. Rend 2, damage 3, that's anti-monster, Rend 1 as well. And then finally, the Blade of High Heavens, which is honestly a wicked combat profile. 5 attacks, 3s and 3s, Rend 2, damage 3. That's a stonking amount of damage that could come out of Yndrasta. Before we look at the passive that she's got, the Prime Huntress, which is red, which means it's done in the combat phase. Some people feel that that doesn't apply and means that Thengavar, which is a range weapon, which it calls out, is going to be able to be used in conjunction with this passive, but I think it's only going to be able to be done in the combat phase because it's red. So if you are looking at passive abilities, please do look at the symbol, which is red, sorry, the color, which is red, or the symbol, which also means it's done in the combat phase, as you can see down here in the offensive ability. Right, so what does it do? Well, it doubles the damage characteristic of this unit's Thengavar for attacks that target monsters. Some people are going to say that it's applied to the shooting. We'll see. If that's true, then that means she's got 2 attacks which are damage 6 and a shooting attack that's damage 8, which is super fun. If not, she's still got 2 attacks in combat that are damage 6. That's going to be very scary for a lot of monsters. She also has another passive called On Wings of Brilliance, where she gets to charge with 3d6. Charging in Age of Sigmar 4 is done where you roll 2d6, and then if you can get within half an inch of a unit that you can see, then that's a charge. Being able to do 3d6 is going to make an average charge 11 inches, and that means you're going to be able to charge really fast. That's why Prosecutors are so good. And then finally, she has another passive called Dazzling Radiance, where you ignore negative modifiers to the control scores of friendly Stormcast Eternal units where they're wholly within 12 inches of this unit. That's pretty nice because the control value of Stormcast is kind of okay. You don't have a lot of models in a Stormcast Eternals army. They are an elite army. That means that your control value is going to be pretty important. Normally, clan rats or goblins are going to have a pretty aggressive control value because there's lots of bodies. So you are going to need a way to make sure people can't debuff your control value, or if anything, improve them, which is cool. Also, a War Master, in addition, she also has a 5-up ward save, so she's very survivable, 3-up armor save, 5-up ward save, that's great. And then she's a War Master, so it means she's going to be able to unlock more units. Now we have the Knight-Arcanum, which has got 6 health, with a 3-up save, and this is a really fun War Scroll because this War Scroll interacts with the Endless Spells. When you have Endless Spells, and each army gets a free manifestation law, which is what Endless Spells are. So if you don't have any Endless Spells right now, like the Stormcast Eternal ones or any of the generic ones, don't feel like you've got to go out and buy them. You can obviously just kit bash them, make sure you get the right bases. But an important part is you would be literally playing with less of your army if you didn't bring some Endless Spells to your Age of Sigmar 4 games. You would be having you would effectively be playing down points and units. So make sure you pick some up or kit bash some yourself. So this unit interacts with them specifically. The Knight-Arcanum has an anti-manifestation attack with their combat profile, which is pretty good because manifestations or endless spells now have a health value and an armor save value. So you have to attack them to get rid of them, which is quite fun because I love the idea of this guy just going over and bopping a spell on top of their head and getting rid of them. It's pretty cool. I love that. That's really fun. They also have the effect, add +1 to casting rolls when you're using a summon ability. So when you are trying to cast a spell to summon an endless spell. And also enemy manifestations cannot set up within 3 inches of this character or pass through this character unless they already started in combat. And finally, this unit has a 4-up ward save against any damage inflicted by manifestations. The next unit we're going to look at are Annihilators, and as someone who's played Annihilators now for the past year or so in Age of Sigmar, pretty excited about looking at their War Scroll dropping from heaven and smashing people's faces in. It does allude to, in the article, the fact that there might be 2 different Annihilator War Scrolls like there was in Age of Sigmar 3, where you have Annihilators with shields and Annihilators with Grand Hammers. They have also stated in many of the articles that WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get, is no longer applicable. So, as an example, with Liberators, you can build them with 2 hand weapons, and you can build them with a hand weapon and a shield. With the Liberators, as an example that they called out, it doesn't matter how you arm them, you're going to just be able to you'll always have the same profile with them, which has led to the obviously amazing kit bash of double shield. However, it has said in this article that potentially there's going to be a different War Scroll for Annihilators with Grand Hammers versus Annihilators with shields and a normal hammer, or like a less grand hammer, I guess. Therefore, that's something to watch out for, but it does mean you can just kind of build your models any way you want. 3 health, 2 up save, exactly like they used to be. They only move 4 inches. This is a unit you really put in deep strike because of their ability Blazing Impact, which, when you use the Scions of the Storm ability, or the deep strike ability we talked about earlier, where they move on reserve and come on the board, you pick 3 enemy units within 10 inches of the unit, and you roll a d3 for each target. On a 2+, you inflict a number of mortal damage on the target equal to the roll. So potentially 9 mortal damage when this unit lands from the board, which is why many people have been playing them as multiple small units, so you can try to just do a ton of mortal damage when they land from reserve. When they do charge in, they've got 9 attacks from the unit, because it's a unit of 3 models with 3 attacks each, so 9 attacks. Hit on 3s, wound on 3s, rend 1, damage 2, which is kind of an okay profile. It's not really that impressive. You're going to miss with a few, you're not going to wound with a few, and they're going to make some saves because it's only rend 1, so it's not as much damage as you would think. They used to have charge mortals, which did a lot more damage, but it feels like what they've tried to do with this version is they've tried to build a much more defensive unit because they have the ability Brace for Impact, which is done in any charge phase when a unit has charged and ended in combat with this unit. You roll a dice for each model in this unit, and any roll of a 6, the target unit or the enemy unit is going to have the Strike Last effect. Now, this is quite interesting, especially when you've only got units of 3. So if you went up to a big unit of 6, this is more likely to happen because you'd be rolling 6 dice and you're likely to roll a 6. So therefore, the 2 different abilities are kind of playing against each other, where Brace for Impact is good on a larger unit and Blazing Impact is better on multiple small units. So it'd be interesting to see how people decide to build that unit as well. And that's everything from this kind of look. We also have already previously looked at the prosecutors. I've looked at prosecutors in a previous article. One of my favorite things about the prosecutors, which you are going to love, is the fact that they charge on 3d6. They also get additional damage and rend in normal Age of Sigmar, but I covered that in another video. So let me know how you feel about Stormcast Eternals in this review so far, this faction focus. Is that enough? What unit are you excited to find out about? What unit do you want to play with? Which one of those are you like, I'm immediately getting Yndrasta, she seems amazing, I can't wait to hunt monsters? Or are you just running out there and be like, Krondis is my guy, I can't wait? Or were you absolutely wowed by the Knight-Arcanum and can't wait to start using manifestations? Let me know which one you're excited about. I love reading the comments. And I want to thank the Twitch chat for helping me have an incredibly good time and reminding me that this is such an incredibly fun game. And obviously you guys can't wait to hear about it. And those guys can't wait to have these kind of unbiased reviews of the things. So thanks very much for everyone. And thanks to everyone on the Wargamer Patreon. You're all great.